All right. Ha. Welcome, everyone. Tonight it's the Red Room, and welcome. I'm Heather Carlisle, and the topic this evening is better communication using cushion statements. And there are many, many ways to use cushion statements. One of the things that it used to be in terms of better communication, we would talk about constructive criticism. And one of my opinions is that criticism never works. Talking about better ways to do things, looking at solving problems, looking what's gone wrong so that we can figure out what to do better. But criticism, placing a criticism on somebody, anybody, is a judgment, a put down. It's hurtful, it's insulting, and it doesn't work. So there was a time when we thought it was very generous to say, I'm going to give you some constructive criticism. And I don't believe in it. I don't believe it works. It's not respectful. And so you say, well, then what do we do instead? When we're looking for great communication between people, whether it's an intimate couple or parent-child, friends, in the workplace, things are always going to go wrong. That's just human life. We're going to have problems, difficulties, misunderstandings, things that need to be improved, and we need to be able to deal with that. You know, the number one predictor of divorce is people who avoid conflict. Well, conflict happens when something isn't working right, and we need to be able to solve that problem. And in order to know what the problem is, somebody has to describe it, which means somebody needs to complain. A complaint doesn't point the finger of blame, doesn't judge or criticize anybody. It talks about, this is what's happening, and I'm complaining that it's not good enough, or I would like to improve it, or in some way or another we need to shift something to make it better, which means we want to make it better. We're not criticizing or judging. So as I'm talking about using cushion statements around complaints, anything that you want to ask me, just type me a question and I can move that into this discussion about how we use cushion statements and stay away from constructive criticism and conflict, judgment, put downs, hurt feelings, and go into, let's make the change so that we can come back to what's creative and healthy and happy and is working. So we need to be able to complain, and usually if we're going to complain, there's something that we want instead. So the simplistic way of looking at it is, I want a complaint and I want a request for change. And that's what we want with each other when we're having differences or there's a problem. Somebody needs to say, I'm going to complain about this, and this is the change that I would like to ask or that I think might work. And sometimes that complaint is really a sensitive subject. Sometimes it's an old thing that hurt people's feelings. And so we need to be able to be careful with our complaint and careful with our request for change. So no matter how well we phrase it, sometimes it's going to be hurtful. And that means that we need to look at cushioning it to make sure that the other person doesn't take it personally, has the strength to go with it rather than feel defensive. Just going to tip my monitor. There. Okay. So, hi, good evening. If you've got a complaint that you need to make with a request for change that you want, and you're not sure how to get it across so that it's constructive and it's going to work for you, type it out and let me help you with it. So, avoiding conflict and solving the problem. We don't want to be in conflict. We don't want to battle. We don't want to fight. We don't want to be against each other. We want to find a win-win solution. in some way, we want to solve the problem. So, very few people seek out conflict. Yet, we naturally disagree regularly for many reasons. In meaningful relationships or partnerships, we need to be able to communicate our complaints, differences, constructive criticism, and I don't think constructive criticism works, although that's what we feel we need to convey, or suggestions. When disagreements cause problems, we need to be able to solve the differences respectfully. The ability to solve or resolve differences or issues is a skill. Children can learn the foundational concepts and abilities with getting along with others. But the elements of character growth for resolving issues may be learned and refined at higher and higher levels on through the decades of adulthood. Consider learning to meet the needs of an angry customer, to mentor an assertive teenager, to choose new wallpaper for your bedroom, to negotiate a raise or a contract with equanimity, to work with a territorial neighbor, to manage a child's math homework or music practice, to settle an elder into assisted living, to move your family to a new city. And it's the story of life, isn't it? There is always something that needs to be improved or changed. So, I have a question. How does a couple solve a problem when they both disagree on the problem? Who wins? Well, no, we want both of you to win. We want both of you to feel as if you've been respected and to have a sense that you're going in the direction where it's going to work and you can put this behind you and not worry about it anymore. So, when they both disagree on the problem, okay, so that means that I think what you mean is, and correct me if I'm wrong or give me a little bit more information, that this is a problem, it's a problem for both of you, and that you have two different views of the problem or two different opinions on what to do about the problem. Would that be true? Who wins? Well, when it has to do with a couple, we don't want one or the other person to win. We want the relationship to be good, which means we want to solve the problem between the two of you. So, give me some more information. If you can, since I don't know who you are, and neither does anybody else, you can tell me what the problem actually is. There is a menu of skills for artful communication. There are 8 different areas, and one of them is cushion statements. So tonight I'm going to focus on cushion statements and really get the specifics and the details of that. But I thought I'd give you the big picture view, and we've already talked about some of these in the Red Room, and I will continue until we've talked about all of them, because I think great communication is the most important thing for us to have great relationships, whether they're personal or professional or friendship. So, this person is giving me an example. If we differ on how to raise our kids, he is adamant that he is right, and so am I. And that may be true. How you solve that usually means you're going to need an outside opinion. And what I most often find is that when a couple, one person has a view about how to raise the kids over here because that's what they think is the best way. And the other person says, this is how to raise our kids here because I think that is the best way. So in that case, my answer usually is, it's time for you to take a parenting class together where you learn from somebody that's up on the most recent parenting information, and then you can have a dialogue with that person who has the most up-to-date information and how to empower children most effectively at each age level. So it says, So the kids are lost in the middle. Yes, they are, and it's not fair. They didn't ask for this. They don't know what they're doing, and they need to depend on the adults in their life to empower them and to teach them and mentor them. So, first of all, I'm going to type to you the very best source in all the research I've done of the best materials for parents and teachers, probably in the world. I know in the English-speaking world. Let me type this in here. And you would want to go to search-institute.com. Let's see. Let me get my typing accurately here. Okay. So that's the website that you go to. The Search Institute has, and I will type this in, 40 The Search Institute has identified through exhaustive research that each one of us needs to develop 40 assets. So it's 40 developmental assets, actually. I typed needs, but it's 40 assets. There are 20 internal assets and 20 external assets that, in the optimum, we want to have developed in ourselves. And of course, as parents and teachers, we want to empower, teach, and encourage and develop in the kids. And that means that, of course, a 6-year-old is going to have a very different strategy or experience in developing those 40 assets versus a 16-year-old. And the Search Institute delineates very clearly the differences on what we call age-appropriate development of those 40 assets. So when people have a disagreement about how best to parent their children, what I would want is for you to get the best definitions and descriptions from the experts who do nothing but study brain development and child development. Now, you may still disagree on how to develop those assets, and out of love for your children, I would want you to go to a third party, like somebody like me, or a parenting expert, or take a parenting class, and consult with that person about your disagreement so that you get an outside view. Let's see here. How should I handle my fiance and his upcoming famous bachelor party? That's a good question. Bachelor parties can take all kinds of forms, can't they? So, first of all, we don't want you to handle your fiance. He's obviously, if he's a fiance, he's an adult man. And do you know what the most important thing in terms of a man feeling loved? Do you know what he needs more than anything? And I'm going to type it right here. Men need, number one, trust. So that means that if he's going to have a bachelor party, he wants you to trust that he's a good guy. That's usually the case with healthy men. They want us, their friends and their women, to trust that they are right at the core a good guy. And they are, which means they're not going to do something to humiliate us or hurt us or to deprive us in certain ways. Now, there are people who do get out of control. If you give men too much trust, they abuse it. Should I be bothered if they go to a strip club? Well, if you're talking about a healthy man, he's not going to abuse your trust. He's going to be respectful. He's going to be considerate of you. And he's not going to want to do anything to hurt you or humiliate you. So that's a good man. That's a good guy. So if you're saying if you give men too much trust, they abuse it, that says that you've been around a man who is either immature or unhealthy. And that means some kind of healing or growth or knowledge is missing. And sometimes that means that um, people haven't been taught what I call the building blocks of a healthy lifestyle. And um, the way I see it, there are 18 building blocks in a healthy lifestyle. And sometimes one of the most critical ones is that we have great friends who are more successful, happier, and better balanced than we are. That's what you want to do. Hang around with people who have a happier, healthier life than you do. And that calls you to that next level of your own quality of life. Let's see here. I told him that I trust him and know that he would never do anything to hurt me. Right on. That's exactly what a good woman would want to tell her man. And I want him to have a good time with his friends. Absolutely. Your job is done, dear. You did fabulously. And if they go to a strip club, guys do that. Sometimes it's a great guy, fun, adventurous thing. And sometimes if you go with the wrong guys, it ends up being out of control with some form of drugs or alcohol or sexual misbehavior. Most guys aren't like that. And if you're afraid, sometimes you think the worst. Let's see here. I told him I don't want to know any of the plans. Well, yeah, if you're his fiance, this is the guys, and this is what the guys do with the guys, and I would say that you've said just exactly what a loving fiance would say, and trust him to go and have fun, and to appreciate his guy friends in the way guys do, and then to be ready to come back to you and say, we had a great time, and now I'm so happy that you and I are getting married. So I know there are a lot of people who don't, they don't tolerate strip clubs, and some people do. So if he's a good guy, and that's what his friends have decided to do, I'm sure it'll be fine. Now I want to go back to the question before that. Yes, the one about the kids. If you live in the Dallas area, there are, and let me type this for you, there are two places that I just love which provide parenting classes. And one of them is DAPE, Dallas Association for Parent Education. They have been, would you believe, teaching free parenting classes for over 40 years. The classes are free. All you need to do is just pay for the paperback book that they work through. And they're free because the classes are taught by people who have been there, done that. They've been trained. They're usually older parents. And that's one way to help you have a dialogue without kind of feeling like you're at odds with each other because you disagree, with a third person, and then tell both sides to that third person. And the third person will give you their viewpoint on both aspects, and then what research has shown works best with kids. And true empowerment, as I say, comes through those 40 assets. And 40 sounds like a lot, but once you read through the list, and incidentally, if you go to the Search Institute website, the lists of those 40 assets are right there. You can type them, download them free, age appropriate, from the first 9 months of life for an infant and what an infant needs in order to grow, on up through adolescence and what an adolescent or a teenager needs in order to grow and empower those 40 assets in their lives for themselves. So That's what I would say. When we disagree about parenting, first of all, go to today's experts, because goodness knows that there are millions of people in this country who want more than anything for their kids to have the best and be the best. And we now have pretty much figured it out. We know what it looks like and we know how to do it. The information is there. If you want, you can email me and ask me. I have a talk that I do and some research that I did, and it's called Keeping Our Teens on Track. You can download my paper or read it on one of my blogs, and this is how it goes. It's parentingteenagers.wordpress.com. I believe. I'm just going to double check that for you to make sure I have it. Typed accurately for you. Okay. Yes, I did it correctly. Okay. There you are. If you go to parentingteenagers.wordpress.com, you'll see my paper with the conclusions of my research on parenting. And that's the fastest way that I know to help parents who disagree about what to do to empower their kids. And I know that some people don't want to go to a parenting class, and some people actually tell me, it's like, who are you to tell me how to parent my kids? Who are you to tell me that I don't know how to do this and that I should take a class, for goodness sake? But that's the fastest way to learn the most I know. Does that help at all? Thanks. Okay, good. Good. All right. Let's see here. Yep, you're right. The kids are lost in the middle. They depend on us to be well-informed and loving adults. And we really do know how to do that nowadays. Thank goodness that I can be so confident to tell you, we know what to do, we know how to do it. We've got the materials. You'll be thrilled at the Search Institute. They also have a website just for parents. Okay, cool. Now, let me get back to the topic that I wanted to cover for you today about communication, which is cushion statements. But first, let me place cushion statements in the large picture of great communication. So, skills are developed. We're not born with them. We often don't get them from the previous generation because they weren't focusing on developing relationship skills. So now we know what they are and we know how to develop those skills. So, we've talked about a couple of these before in the Red Room. First of all, active listening, showing interest and understanding, and this was part of the self-scored listening quiz. Number 2, use of humor, playful good humor, not cynicism, not acerbic wit, not put-downs, not insults, or avoidant humor. You know, some people use humor in order to sidestep something that's intense or vulnerable or meaningful, and they just kind of use their humor to make light of it or laugh it off or shift to another subject. But really artful communication uses a sense of humor and a lightness. Sometimes it's hard to do that, but if you can, it always adds. That's one of the things I love about the men in my life, my husband specifically. He's way better at adding humor than I am, and I'm so thankful for it. Sometimes I'm not very good at responding, and I keep working at it. I'll probably be working at it for the next 30 years. So 3, building rapport is another skill. Shared time and conversation in dialogue, not monologue, where we build rapport by listening and talking, interacting, where we feel connected, where we feel understood. Number 4, calm emotions. When we get upset about whatever it is we're communicating about, quality communication is immediately affected and degraded. And I know that that's hard. And it is a skill. It is a skill that if we decide to practice it, we get better and better at it as the years go by, unless there's an unresolved conflict where there's resentment. And then, no matter what good skill you have with calming your emotions, it's really hard to do it. Number 5, cushion statements, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. Cushion statements means explain your intentions, your goals, and give assurance around the complaint with the request for change. 6, validation, which means you validate the other person by saying, I see your point of view, and expressing yourself so that they know that you understood what they said, or you know their position, or you can empathize and identify with their thoughts, their opinions, their position. And FYI, some of you probably really know this, women really need and thrill to and respond to being validated. Women usually, in some deep way, we want to know that we are valued for who we are and understood for who we are, not just what we do. So validation is very powerful when a woman receives it, which means women usually know how to give it, and it's a skill for men to learn. What if you don't see their point of view? What if you don't see their point of view? You just ask. Sometimes there is a difficulty in them answering you, but if you don't see their point of view, then you become curious, you elicit, you get more information, you help them empty the cup, you do some spiritual companioning where you're saying, you know, I don't understand your point of view and I really want to. So it's always the case that we can learn more and understand more. What if it makes no sense at all? Then you don't have enough information. If the other person is close to you, obviously they must be pretty intelligent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to the Red Room and asking questions. So anybody who's here is obviously intelligent and articulate. If you're in a relationship with somebody, then they're probably your peer. And if it doesn't make sense, then there's something that you don't know and haven't figured out and haven't asked, or they haven't been able to articulate in a way where you're understanding what's underneath it. And sometimes we don't understand that. Do you know that that's what usually makes the first year of marriage hell, where we have two different meanings on the same word, and we have hurt feelings because of misunderstandings? The 7th and 8th parts of skillful communication, removing blocks. And so this is probably very appropriate to the thing that you're asking about. You're saying, I don't understand his point of view. So you want to remove blocks. You want to leave the non-negotiable to the side, and you want to move it to a new focus or a new viewpoint, which says, I am not understanding you. So let me come around to another viewpoint, because I really want to understand you. I love you and I respect you, and I want to be on your team. So those right there were 3 cushion statements. And then number 8, this, in terms of the 8 skills for artful communication, is accepting and inviting feedback. Notice it's not constructive criticism, it's feedback, saying, what do you think? Any ideas? How does that sound? Show a willingness and a sincere interest in learning new ideas, learning what they think, learning from their viewpoint. So that's the 8 skills for artful communication. One huge caution about calm emotions. When you need to take a time out to calm yourself, make sure it doesn't appear as if you're doing it for effect. Like, I need to calm myself, so I'm leaving, which is kind of like a manipulation or an insult. Or I'm leaving, which means I won't talk. Or I'm leaving because I want to show you that you ought to be the guilty one. Be careful when you leave if you leave a conversation that's too emotional or too out of control, that you don't do that. When you use a pattern interrupt for self-soothing, so a pattern interrupt means I'm starting to escalate here, I'm starting to get upset, I need to calm myself down, in other words, self-soothe. When you use a pattern interrupt to get away and self-soothe, you need to be in agreement and have set it up in advance that this is the way you respectfully handle things. So when you use a pattern interrupt for self-soothing, leave with an assurance that you want to come back in a calmer state, and then do. Don't just leave and then refuse to talk about it in an hour or a day or a week. This is best done with a prior discussion to set up accurate expectations so that you're not just doing something and they don't know why or what you mean to do or if you're coming back. You want to set it up in advance, and that's the respectful thing to do. To create an agreement with the two of you, how the two of you handle difficulties. Make it clear that you have no intentions for avoidance, for disrespect, nor abandonment, and that you want to resolve the difference no matter what, except you want to do it intelligently. Then stop. Calm yourself down in whatever way really works for you. Leave the room, go for a walk, go for a drive, play with the kids, go onto your computer, and come back when you agreed. I was just working with a couple recently, and they haven't been married long, and she was saying that her pattern interrupt for when she gets out of control, and she got really angry recently, is that she knows that she calms herself down if she can go for a drive. Goes for a drive, calms down, and can come back and solve a problem. But what she didn't know was when she wanted to go for a drive, he felt abandoned, unlike she didn't care, and like she was just avoiding. So he didn't let her go for a drive. Well, after we talked about it, clearly with me, as a third party, it became clear to him that that's really her best pattern interrupt and the thing that works best for her. She already knows herself. And that if he wanted her to be less emotional and more able to intelligently talk, he needed to just let her go for a drive, and she'd come back better. And he hadn't done that, so she was at the boiling point. And after our discussion, they got it. And this is part of their stride in their relationship, in their marriage, that when she needs to calm herself down, going for a drive works. So I'm wondering, do you know what works for you to calm yourself down? That's critical for us as adults, that we know what works for us. I know one of the things that works best for me is that I go by myself and I just write it all down. I give it to the paper and I can just go bleh. I don't have to watch my words. I can be whiny, I can be grouchy, and I just get it all on the page. And once it's on the page, then I'll sit back inside myself and realize, oh yeah, and figure it out and come back intelligently. So for me, writing is my particular best pattern interrupt. Other people going for a walk, some people just going out on the back porch and sitting in the rocking chair for a while. It just depends. Each one of us, sometimes people need to go work out. Sometimes they need to call and just talk to their best friend. Go shoot a game of pool. Whatever it is that you do to calm yourself down and come back to who you really are. Again, if you have any comments or questions about this, I'd love to hear from you. Okay, cushion statements, the topic for tonight. So a cushion statement is a layering of soft things on top of and underneath whatever it is. If this is the tough thing, this pen represents the difficulty or the complaint or the problem. What we want to do, instead of just saying, here's the problem, we want to say this and this and this, the problem, this and this and this. Especially when it's something that you know is a sensitive issue, but you know you have to talk about it. So if you've got one, type it for me so that I can use it as an example. So it helps to use a cushion statement before communicating about a hot topic, a delicate subject, an objection, or a complaint. A cushion statement is a friendly, validating, assuring, clarifying, explaining, or agreeable statement, for the reason that this immediately lets the other person know you don't intend to dominate, criticize, manipulate, insult, wound them, or argue with them, that you're on their team. How do you complain about your sex life? It has deteriorated over the years. Good question. Fabulous question. A question that is of concern to thousands of people, because that's only natural, isn't it? To once a month now. Yes, and sometimes with some couples, depending on how old they are, once a month is fine. But usually you want to connect more often than that. And goodness knows that your sex life, your sexual response, and your romantic bond is sensitive to all the other stressors in life. So one of the things that I want to kind of get out of the way in the very beginning when a couple talks to me about having problems with their sex life, usually there's something that's hardened the heart of one of them or both of them. Because when our heart is hardened, we don't want to soften and embrace each other. Let's see. You're in your early 30s. Well, that doesn't sound, like it's a happy sex life for you. What do you mean it's only natural for sex to get bad? No, I didn't say to get bad. It's only natural for sex to be influenced by life, and for us to get past that, what we call the falling in love period, where it's just unmitigated passion. And when Jack and I teach this together, he talks about the love cocktail, which is the chemistry in your brain that happens, the combination of chemicals in your brain that create that fabulous, passionate, falling in love period where we just can't even be in the same room without touching each other or seeing each other. Now that love cocktail lasts about, at the max, a year and a half. If you have a long distance relationship and you're always having a honeymoon because you only see each other on the weekends or once a month, then that passion can last longer, up to about 3 years. But after that, you've calmed down and you're two people, a man and a woman who really love each other and are best friends, but that chemistry of the love cocktail is no longer there, which means then we need to do something to connect with each other and be romantic. If we don't do it, it doesn't just happen the way it did in the beginning of the relationship. Let's see. Do you believe that in that theory where for 1 month you should have sex every day to bring the bond back? Well, I don't think there's one answer to everything. And I don't know, having sex every day for a month, holy crap, if people were only willing to do it. What I was leading up to is your sex life usually is not the problem. Your sex life is affected by the problem. And your sex life is usually the sensitive part of your relationship that's first affected by whatever other difficulty you're facing. Now, for example, one logical and not negative difficulty in the truest sense is if you're a couple, both have jobs, and you've got children, young children, or teenage children, and the children are active and doing various things. That means that you're both spending a lot of time and energy at work. And then when you're not at work, you're spending a lot of time and energy taking care of your children, which means you don't have much energy by the time you get to each other. And that means that unless you know how to make sure every week you have personal, private, quiet time where you know you're not going to be interrupted and you know you don't have any obligations, your sex life is probably the last thing on your list, unless somebody has given you the information or mentored you, or you've learned that you must make that a goal and you must plan it and make sure that nothing gets in the way of that private time where you actually have energy for each other. Okay. Should I have sex if I am not in the mood but do it to satisfy him? Well, sometimes, yeah. And the difference, the gender difference between men and women is very complex and detailed. And of course, there's a huge difference sexually between men and women as well. Vive la différence. And yet sometimes, if we don't know the differences, the sexual differences between men and women, it makes it difficult. So let me give you an example. I remember a couple where he was complaining that they were losing their sexual connection and that he really wanted to make love with her once or twice a week, which is pretty average. And she said she was tired, they have little kids, and that sometimes she just did not have the energy. And for her, arousal and orgasm took quite a bit of energy. Now, some women, it doesn't take that much energy. Other women, it's hard to shut down your brain and move into the arousal state. Depending on what your love map is and what your beliefs are, how you think about yourself as a woman, what your life looks like, can be quite complex. And that he really was a gentleman about their sex life. He wanted to make sure that she had an orgasm before he did. And she said, but sometimes, I don't really need an orgasm. And that's true for some women sometimes, where it just having the sexual act, the sexual bond, that tight intimacy of your two bodies it's just divine. And for a woman, if she's tired, it doesn't matter that much to her if she doesn't have an orgasm. What she's loving at that moment is the intimacy, the bond, the sweet closeness with him. So with that particular couple, he needed to know that it was okay for him to relax because she loved having sex with him, and that it was okay if she didn't have an orgasm every time. And that's what she wanted, and that's what she felt good about. And he needed to feel good about it too. And so that was me helping the two of them figure out their stride in their marriage, in their sex life. So that's an example of, yeah, sometimes that's how it works for some couples. Let's see here. Do you believe, okay, what did you mean love map? Oh, good question. Love map is my shorthand for each one of us has a kind of a love map in our brain where we developed our sexual response or our libido. Whatever it is that turns you on, whatever it is that's sexually arousing and erotic or exciting to you that gets you aroused. That can be the arousal map or the love map. And each one of us developed that arousal map in our own way, in our own time, through the developmental process as we were developing sexually. So what I want is for each one of us to know our arousal map or our love map so that we know what works for us. So when you know what works for you, then you can teach your partner or share with your partner what works for you. Maybe it doesn't work for anybody else, but who cares? What you want to know is what works in your relationship with your beloved. And so that's your love map. You want to know your own love map, your own arousal systems, your own sexual response, so that you can convey that in your sexual relationship, with your intimate partner. Does that answer your question? What if I know, but I'm too shy to tell my husband? I know that sounds crazy. No, it doesn't sound crazy at all. It's very common and it's very sad. Because our husbands or our wives want to love us the best. I want to be the best wife I can be. And I know Jack wants to be the best husband he can be to me. So he wants to know what turns me on. He wants to know what I like. Doesn't matter about any other woman because I'm his woman. So he really wants to know. And you know what I need to be able to do as his wife is to be absolutely open and giving and free with empowering him to love me, because that's definitely what I want back. I want him to be able to tell me what turns him on, what he really likes. I don't want to spend my time and my energy doing things that I think he might like. I really want to know my man. I want to know what he wants, what he likes. Sometimes that takes years of trial and error, but sometimes it's just years of practicing and finding things that maybe you didn't know you liked, and practicing a great sex life with each other over the years is a lovely thing. We can't know the fullness of our own sexual response and our own intimate sex life with our partner until we've practiced with each other, until we've learned each other, until we've experienced each other in all different ways, all different days, all different times, all different things happening in our lives. And that's the wonder of an intimate relationship, that, here I am in my 60s, and I'm still learning things about my own sexual response and my husband's. Part of that is because we're now at a different time of our lives, so our bodies are changing. Doesn't say that we're no longer sexual creatures. We're very sexual creatures, and I intend to be until I die. And there's a little comment that one of the experts on longevity said that the people longest lived in Okinawa, I think it's Okinawa, in Japan, they usually die in their sleep after good sex, which in their 90s, So I know that there's a lot of misinformation and false beliefs and hurts and misunderstandings and shyness about sexuality because our culture isn't very comfortable with it. And you and I know that there's a whole world there that we're probably out of touch with. That is the pornography industry, is the illicit and unhealthy sex industry. And that's a sign to me that says we haven't figured out how to be happy and healthy sexually yet. We're working on it. And I think a lot of us have a lot of good ideas about how it actually does work. And yet, our culture is not easy in the saddle or expert and artful with that yet. So I'm sure you're shy, dear. And out of love, may your love triumph over your shyness. Figure out ways that make you feel safe to get over your shyness. Now, this is a perfect example for me to use cushion statements. Let's see here. 60s, you look well, actually, I'm going to be 61 in June. So thank you. I try to walk my talk, and nowadays we know a lot more about staying healthy and happy, which means we do look younger as we age than the previous generations did. And I know that, down the road, you're probably a lot younger than I am. You'll look even better than I do at 60 because you know sooner than I did how to live a good, healthy, happy life. Thank you, dear. Okay, your shyness. So let me use this as an example for how cushion statements work. Now, you want to talk this way when you're feeling comfortable, when you're relaxed, when you feel close to your husband, probably after you've had a good meal. And you know that you're going to, it's in essence a complaint with a request for change. And the complaint is, I would like us to have more adventure in our sex life, and I am too shy to talk about that. So that would be the complaint and the request for change, right? So the cushion statements before would be something like this. First of all, and this is all about the truth and sincerely and caring. First of all, I would say, sweetie, I've had something on my mind that is really important to me. And I want to share it with you, but I'm really scared. And it's not anything negative, but I'm really, really shy about it, and I'm so scared to talk about it. And it's not because it's you. It's just that it's something that I'm really scared to talk about no matter what. But you're my best friend, and I want to be able to share everything that I think and feel with you. And this is really important to me and really important to us. Now, did you get how many cushion statements I used? Which means now he's really listening to you. He's a little concerned. He knows this is important. He doesn't know what it is, and he really wants to know, and he's a little worried because, obviously this is a touchy subject for you. And then, so those are the cushions before. Now let's articulate the complaint with the request for change. So the complaint with the request for change, and you would need to say this in your way, but for example, would be to say, I'm really feeling shy and inadequate about talking about sex in any way. And I know that we can have better sex in our marriage as time goes on, and I want to work on that. Okay, that's the complaint with the request for change, right? Did you notice that it's all about my complaint? It's all about me. I didn't say anything about him, or I didn't complain or judge or criticize him in any way. I'm talking about me and us, with the attitude that we are solving this together, and that I trust you, and I want you to know this, and I'm expecting you to come towards me and help me with this. So then, the cushion statements after that. And so here are the afterwards cushion statements. Not that I don't love our sex life, and I think that you're my dream lover. I love being sexual with you. And I want to be more adventurous with it, and I'm shy about it because you're my best friend, and I want to have the best marriage for you, and I also want to be the best lover for you, and I want you to be the best lover for me. And there's some things that I know that I like that I haven't been able to tell you about, and I don't want to be scared to tell you about them, and I will, I really will, but let's figure out a way for me to just tell you a little bit at a time so it doesn't scare me so bad. Is that okay with you? So, what do you think? Cushion statements before, complaint with a request for change, cushion statements after. Were those cushion statements in any way helpful to you or accurate for how you might want to be able to communicate about this with your husband? So, let me know. So let me see here. Okay, that sounds really good. Do you want to say it? You're not the first person that's asked me that. And sometimes people do write it down. And that's good. That's fine. You're learning a skill. Cushion statements are a skill, which means it takes practice. And I have to tell you, when Jack and I got married, he is, but he was the master of cushion statements. He taught me so much about that. And now I'm so connected and bonded and safe with him that I know he never means to say anything to hurt me or um, be disrespectful in any way. So now when he starts with his cushion statements, I said, okay, sweetie, it's okay. I don't need any more cushion statements. Just tell me what you want to tell me. And sometimes he does the same to me. It's like, okay, it's okay. Just tell me what you need to tell me. So if you want my handout on cushion statements, just email me, ask me, and I've got, I guess it's about 6 pages here with cushion statements, examples, and examples of conversations. So just tell me that you want cushion statements and I'll send it to you, or I'll send you to a place where you can download it. Okay, here's an example. Instead of making a harsh statement such as, I hate you when you yell at me. I'm not the only one who makes mistakes. When are you going to take some responsibility? You're selfish and mean and you don't care about what I want. Well, I know most of us have caught ourselves saying something like that. But notice that the person was pointing the finger and making negative statements about the other person, which is one of John Gottman's 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Okay, email me, dear. Excellent. 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse that John Gottman, our great researcher on marriage, has identified as the 4 most detrimental things to a marriage. So, 1 is insults. 2, criticism. 3, defensiveness. 4, refusing to talk, which is stonewalling. Okay, have I got that right? Yes. So these are the 4 things that you don't want to do. The one thing that you do need to be able to do is complain. So, did you notice in that example, I hate you when you yell at me. So that's it's a criticism and it's an insult. I hate you. You yell at me. That's defensiveness, which says I'm defending myself against you because you're my enemy. When are you going to take some responsibility, which says you aren't responsible and you haven't been responsible so far. So all of those things are not going to work. So let's look at a before cushion. I really love you and I want all good stuff between us. I hate fighting with you. Notice I hate fighting with you. You're my favorite person in the whole world. I know that if I were you, I wouldn't like my attitude either. Notice it's me, me, me. I'm only talking, complaining, and taking the complaint. The complaint always comes from me. But these are cushion statements kind of setting it up. I really want to solve this problem, but I don't know what to do when I get defensive. I know that you really love me too. I don't want to argue and go nowhere with it. I want to be able for us to work this out. So those are all the cushions. And it's honest, coming towards, positive, inviting. And then the complaint with a request for change. Here it is. And I'm not sure what to do to get it back, because when you talk to me this way, I feel hurt and disrespected. And I feel like defending myself by yelling back because I feel like I'm being attacked. So maybe you have a suggestion to help us agree, or maybe we could take a time out and calm down and discuss what we both want. So that's the suggestion, the request for change. which is a question also. The request for change says, I'm requesting the change and I'm open as to whether or not you can respond with that request for change, or I'm open to ideas that you have, and then the cushion statements after. I'm not meaning to tell you what to do, to put you off, nor to ignore this problem. You're my best friend. I promise that I'll work this through with you, and I know we can do it when we're less emotional and more thoughtful. I'm open to any ideas you have too. I honestly trust that you care about this as much as I do. Isn't that a beautiful thing to hear? Wouldn't it be nice to hear people talk to each other that way? It's only intelligent, and all those things, all those cushion statements that I shared with you, it's not rocket science. It's sincerely telling the truth about the goodness and the commitment and the trust in this relationship. Okay, so here's another example of using cushion statements. Now, this is what you don't want to say. I asked you before and you didn't do anything. Notice, I asked you and you didn't do anything, which is a complaint. It's a criticism of them and saying, then you never listened to me. Oh, which now you understand, anytime we say one of those blanket statements, it's almost never the truth. You never listened to me. Well, that's not true. He or she listens to you in certain ways at certain times. Otherwise, you wouldn't be even talking to each other. All you ever want is for me to do all the work. Well, all you ever want? Well, that's probably not true. You're selfish and mean, and you don't care about what I want. Well, all these finger pointings and negativity, criticisms. So replace this using a layer of cushion statements before and after, and saying it in a way that's a complaint with a request for change rather than a judgment or a criticism. So here we go. The before cushion statements. Notice we're staying with the first person. I really want to stop fighting with you. I care more about you and us than anything. That's why I get so upset. I'm more sensitive to you than to anyone. I really want to solve this problem. I know you don't like it when I get upset. I don't want to argue anymore. I want our happy friendship. Cushion statements. Here's the complaint with the request for change. When you ignore me this way, I feel hurt and disrespected, and I feel like defending myself. But I don't know how to do that when I feel like I'm being criticized and that I don't matter to you. So can we take the time to discuss what we both want? Complaint with a request for change. And then the after cushion statements. I want to be able for us to work this out. I want to listen to your side. And I want to know what you really want. And I hope you can hear me too. I'm not meaning to control you nor say that it's all your fault. I'm willing to take responsibility from my part in this. I'd appreciate if you can help me get clear and to clear this up. I know you're always willing to be fair and that you have more ideas than me. What would it be like to communicate like that? It's not rocket science. I've given you two very detailed examples of this. And it takes me back to that first question that someone typed, where she said, if we differ on how to raise our kids, he's adamant that he is right, and so am I. So what if you took this concern of yours and surrounded it with cushion statements and started to brainstorm together about what you can do? Get some ideas together about how you can go forward hand in hand, side by side. Our kids want to see us together. They want to see us united. You know what they say. The best thing you can do for your children if you're a woman is to love their dad. The best thing you can do for your children if you're a man is to love their mom. Of course, the best thing any of us can do for ourselves is to love our mate and to want to know them so that we can love them better. Because guess what happens then? They love us back. Any more questions? Any more comments? Otherwise, this is the Red Room for this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in with me tonight and for asking me great questions and for being so appreciative of the assistance and the work that we do here in the Red Room. Thanks, Heather. Oh, you're so welcome. I love doing this work. You can tell it's fun, it's endless, and we're always going to have more to learn and to talk about that's really meaningful. Thanks for tuning into the Red Room, and I'll see you same time next week at the Red Room. You're welcome, dears, and good night.